Welcome back to another episode of Alaska Rants. We're out here in Anchorage, Alaska, down here at Go to the Vote. Is that the event that we're
Rock the vote.
Rock the Vote tonight down at the Pink Cadillac off of Muldoon? So if you guys want to get out and bring a friend, let's get everybody ready to vote on August 20th. That's this coming Tuesday. Right now, I'm with the congressional candidate for Congress, Nick Begich. Nick, why are you running, and why do you think it's important for people to get involved with this?
Yeah, I'm running because I believe that Alaska has a tremendous amount of opportunity in front of it. I think that's why a lot of us who live here choose to be here and remain here. But I talk to a lot of young people around the state, and I talk to parents and grandparents, and folks are concerned about the trajectory economically of Alaska. I talk to a lot of young people who say, maybe I need to leave the state, maybe I need to go somewhere else for an opportunity. I hear people talking all the time about how expensive it is to live in Alaska, right? To buy that first home. I mean, just going through the drive-through, you're going to spend $30
A minimum.
Yeah, and so that's not sustainable. It's not conducive to a good quality of life, and we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to open up the state of Alaska, making sure that we have good-paying, high-paying jobs, the kind of jobs that you can build a family around, and you can feel confident are going to be there, not just 1 year, 2 year, even 5 years down the line, but for generations to come.
Yes, sir. I think that's an important issue that all Alaskans face, especially if you've got a bigger family.
That's right.
$30 isn't going much just for two people.
That's
you
right.
know, if you got a big family, that $1,000 a week on food and groceries just to survive.
It just adds up.
And we're at that tipping point now where I know a lot of people are, food or gas or, how do I get to work and pay my rent and pay my bills? And, we need
That's
someone
right.
in there to make a change for that. Why do you think not a lot of people are voting right now?
Yeah, I think we've seen some relatively low turnout so far in this primary election. Part of it's because of ranked choice voting.
Yeah.
And ranked choice voting, in the past you had an election where there was a primary and it determined the primary winner for one party or the other party, and so there was a reason to go out to the polls. But right now there's not as much of a reason for people to go to the polls because so many of these candidates are just going to go right through to the general election. And it's paradoxical, but what's happened is ranked choice voting has actually been a factor that suppresses the vote because it reduces voter enthusiasm. So I think that's part of the issue. But let me encourage people. Voting is a civic duty. It's a right. It's a privilege. You should get out there. You should use that to express your views on leadership. If you're not happy with how Alaska is turning out right now, if you're concerned about the future, you need to express yourself at the ballot box, on social media, in conversations with family, friends, others. We need to make sure that we're being involved and engaged because at the end of the day, this is our Alaska, this is our community, and this is our nation.
Yep, so go vote this Tuesday, man. Let's keep him in the race. He's the only candidate so far, and this is where transparency comes in big. He's the only candidate to acknowledge that if he doesn't win in the primaries, he's going to back out. No other candidate up here wants to make a change and make a drop if you're not the top campaign promise to drop out if you're not the top, right?
That's right. We saw what happened in 2022, and I'll tell you what, I had a front row seat. I was in that race. So at the end of the day, what happens is if you have more than one person in the same party running beyond the primary, you get a number of, I'll call them unintended consequences. They haven't gotten rid of primaries. People think, oh, well, the primary doesn't matter. Well, in fact, we pushed the primary all the way into the November election. When you have more than one person on one side of the aisle in the race, you're just running for that base all the way until the last day. And you never have an opportunity to consolidate. And then again,
Kind of split your funds up also.
You're splitting funds, you're splitting volunteers, and you're splitting and dividing attention among the electorate. There are a number of problems with ranked choice voting as it's been rolled out, and we can see that now. And I tell folks, look, if the Democrats really loved ranked choice voting, like they say that they do, why don't they put 4 or 5 people in the race on their side of the aisle? They don't do it. They put one. And they put one for a reason, because of the reasons that I just mentioned,
Yep.
Right? They've recognized that. And it allows them to run a candidate in my race, Mary Peltola, who is a very left-leaning voting record in the House and runs a very moderate-sounding campaign. And she's able
Yep.
to do that because there's no other Democrat in the race to challenge her on her progressive record. And so she remains unchallenged from the left all the way through to the general election. and they've recognized that.
So recognizing that Mary Peltola doesn't really speak up for Alaska, she says she does, but then she doesn't turn out to vote, right? She one vote she had recently, she marked herself present instead of voting yes or no, right?
That's
Like,
right.
why
Yeah.
even show up at that point? Um, what would you bring to Congress as far as like a national scale that could help Alaska as far as, let's say, border security, our natural mining rights? We have a bunch of minerals up here. That whole economic, struggle that we're having up here is also caused because of these other issues. Do you have any plans on tackling those when you get to Congress?
Absolutely. At the end of the day, we're a resource state. Oil and gas, coal, right? Precious metals, base metals, rare earths, critical minerals. Alaska has nearly every critical mineral on the critical minerals list. They're
Yep.
here in abundance, right? We have timber. We have such a robust fishing industry that 60% of the nation's seafood actually comes from Alaska. And of course, we have an incredible tourism resource as well. People want to come from not just around the United States, but around the world to see our state. So
Bucket
we are a
list.
resource state, right? We recognize that. That's what we're really good at. It's our comparative advantage relative to other places in the world. We also have one of the world's most responsible, if not the most responsible, resource development jurisdictions, right? So here in Alaska, if you really care about the earth, you're going to do the work here. In fact, the environmental left should be pushing to do work in Alaska, not shutting it down. And as I've said many times in the past, it's really not about the environment. It couldn't be. Because again, an environmentalist would demand that the work be done in Alaska, not shut Alaska down. So if it's not about the environment, what is it about? It's about the fact that resource jobs tend to be conservative voters, and the hard left wants to create a political outcome in Alaska where they shut enough industry down that they can turn our state blue. And that's their entire intent.
Yep, that's not a good direction to go, Alaska. So let's get this man in office. August 20th, let's keep him on the ballot. November 5th, let's elect him into office. Let's get out there and do your part. It's a civic duty. Last thing, let's finish this up on kind of a sad note, but the border, right? You got fentanyl, human trafficking. Trump says he's going to deport everybody day one. I kind of like it, but that's just my personal opinion. Do you have any thoughts or issues or, plans on trying to help tackle that at a national level?
I have met a number of people around Alaska as I travel all over the state. People tell me personal stories. And I've heard a number of personal stories about family members, longtime friends that have died because of a fentanyl overdose. And in some cases, these young people, they had no idea there was any fentanyl in the thing that they were taking. And it's extremely sad. It's extremely heartbreaking for families in Alaska. And I tell people all the time, I know we're up here in the Great White North, but fentanyl has made Alaska almost a southern border state. And we have got to get our borders under control. If you don't have borders, you don't have a country. Yep. And we got to know who is here. There's been a number of terrorists intercepted at the border, and there's millions of people, they call them gotaways. These are people that we never intercepted. We don't know who these people are, right? Yep. And there are millions of those people in our country as well. Estimates range from 10 to 20 million people have entered our country illegally. The Biden administration has, in my view, abused the asylum process, yep. right? And they're calling people economic refugees or climate refugees or whatever sort of category they can come up with in order to keep these people here. And let me just tell you, here just a few months ago, there was a vote in the House just to clarify the constitutional intent behind the census. Hey, yes, we can count everybody who's here in the census, but when we're determining how we apportion our congressional districts by state, how many congressmen and women does California get, or does Texas get, or does Florida get? That should only be determined by U.S. citizens.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Right? It's only U.S. citizens that should be counted when it comes to how many representatives each state gets. And every single Democrat, including Mary Peltola, in the United States House, voted against that bill. And it should tell everybody exactly what their plan is. They want these people to be here for that 5, 6, 7 year green card term that Joe Biden's handing out. Yep. Because that gets them through the 2030 census, at which time the reapportionment occurs. and sanctuary states and cities will be awarded greater influence in the House because they'll have more members. By some estimates, 13 to 15 members. And right now, the House is separated only by 5.
Yep.
Right?
It's always been close.
It's very close. And so this is a technique that's being deployed by the Democrats to achieve permanent power post-2030 in the House, and by extension, because of the Electoral College, the presidency. And it's un-American. What they're doing is wrong. I think anyone who looks at this with an honest and objective view would recognize you can't have tens of millions of illegal immigrants or even migrants, coming into the country and then use them to put your foot on the scale for apportionment of congressmen and electoral college votes.
Well, it's not like we planned for them as a city. As infrastructure was growing, right? The city only plans out for a certain amount of people. And this is not just true for our city, it's true for every city. If you were to drop 100,000 people, 200,000 people in Anchorage right now, it would suck. Well, everything would drop down.
And here's what's happening. These folks are getting free education, free travel, free housing, free health care. But let me tell you, it's nothing free about it, right? The American taxpayer is paying for that, right? And we do have challenges in this country. We do have infrastructure needs. Right here in Alaska, right? We've got a huge homeless population that just never seems to be resolved in Anchorage, Fairbanks, Juneau, even Ketchikan, and other places of the state. And if we're going to be spending additional resources, it shouldn't be on the tens of millions of people who have made their way to the United States illegally. No. It should be on our own people and our own challenges and solving those challenges first. The United States is only 5% of the global population.
Yep.
We can't solve all of the world's problems. By any measure, the United States citizen is the most generous of all, right?
Yep.
On a per capita basis, on a gross dollar basis, we give more of our resources to the rest of the world in terms of just straight charity and generosity than any other nation in the world. But there are limits, right, to just how much we can do. And, it's not charity if it's forced upon the American people. And it's hard to defend a bankrupt nation, and we have got to get our fiscal house in order. And this illegal immigration is just one of many things that's making that challenge increasingly difficult.
Well, I hope you win the primary and stay on the ballot, because I would love to get Alaska's voice back in the conversations in these dark rooms in D.C. I'd like Alaska to start getting their name mentioned here and there, and maybe we can get some stuff back, some rights, some powers, some liberties back, and start drilling, start growing our economy and growing a future up here. So
that's what it's all about. At the end of the day, you got to drill, baby, drill. That's just, it wasn't mine, right? Nope. But that's the truth. You've got to develop the resources that we have, right? Yep. If you don't, you're turning off one of the greatest engines that the entire nation has in Alaska, right?
Yes, sir.
It's good for us. It's good for the rest of the country. We're all in the same boat together. Right? And as we pivot supply chains out of places like China and return them to domestic locations, those supply chains need to start right here.
Yes, sir. Hey, well, thank you for taking this time with us, nobodies, and sharing your thoughts and opinions.
Happy to do it.
It's great. And this is what transparency looks like, guys. Accountable. He'll meet with anybody. He'll talk to you, let you film you. I challenge any other candidate to step up and fill the roles of this great Alaskan man right here. We'll catch you next time on Alaska Rants.